love, so now I'm doing what I want.
Welcome in, everybody. This is Sunday, and you know what that means. It's the weekly sports blend here, brought to you by Roof Rescue by Prime, Heat Ratio Sports, and your host here, Tony Jigsaw Cutillo. One of the most interesting and unique segments that we do every single week. Adam already checking in. What's up, Adam? I knew you'd be here. I know you're ready. And again, this is the segment where we look back. We look back because obviously, this has been a historic week for March Madness, and we already know that was going to be crazy. It's always a wild ride, and we'll talk about a little bit of that 93. It's very symbolic when we talk about the NCAA, but it's just a nice way to end the week and start the week. We end the week on a high note, right? It's been a ton of stories throughout, whether it be the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball getting ready, and obviously March Madness. And then we look ahead to the week. But today we look back and we relive some of the most important and fun-filled moments in sports history. So this year, I say this week, we look back at the year 1993. Last week it was 1996, which, listen, was symbolic for the NBA draft. It was one of the, if not the best, one of the best in sports history, the amount of superstars that it came up with. And we even spent probably about like 35 minutes just on that. So today, when we look at 1993, there's a few things to me that obviously stick out. Now, if you're a Philadelphia Philly fan, obviously it's Joe Carter, right? It's the 93 Phillies. So before we get to the Joe Carter moment, we look at the 93 Phillies team and we say, wow, the land of misfits, right? We look at the rotation. We look at the bench players. We look at guys like Pete Incaviglia. We all know the Lenny Dykstra special vitamins kind of line because we know a lot of those guys, Danny Jackson, Ben Rivera, Wes Chamberlain, Dave Holland. A lot of these guys were absolutely on the roids, okay? The special vitamins, right? Dan checking in 93 says, my wheelhouse. Dan, 93 to me was such a symbolic year. And number one, let's start right off the bat. The reason why it was symbolic to me is because of the time we're in right now, right? We're talking about the Fab Five. We're talking about the Michigan. Now, I'm not going to talk about all all the tabloids that came out afterwards, and the suspensions, things of that nature. But just 93 in general, that Fab Five. Man, I need more coffee this morning. But the Fab Five with Chris Webber, Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, Jimmy King, Ray Jackson. That was a symbolic team, right? Under Fisher. So, but the thing is, they didn't win, right? The symbolic moment is the timeout that Chris Webber thought they had that caused they lose 77-71 to a North Carolina team by the legend Dean Smith, right? The legend that team says, at culture, so my man JD checking in, Michigan was the biggest bust team ever. They had, I don't know. See, here's the thing, JD, I don't know if they were. Because I would put them up against the UNLV running Rebs. Were they the biggest bust team ever? And the reason why I say that is because they should have won 4 championships if all those guys were 4-year college players. So Michigan, yes. Michigan was because they just excelled the entire year. They looked over competition, right? But yeah, exactly. Jackson, King, Weber, Rose, and Howard. And, they had Voskuhl coming off the bench, right? Which was a really good 6-man, could shoot all over. Larry Johnson, right? Larry Johnson, JD, on the UNLV team. We talked about that before. We talked about it on Half Court Heat. And we talked about how that Jerry Tarkanian-led team was really, really good. Now, were they a bust? I kind of think they were because I think they should have won a lot more, okay? But you look at that Michigan team, and I say this before because, obviously you look behind me, I'm a huge Allen Iverson fan. And in 1993, we can talk about AI because that's when the whole racially portrayed incident happened in his hometown, right, where it kind of changed, his mindset for forever. But they changed the culture of the game in the Fab Five, right? Before the Fab Five came in, there was no baggy shorts, right? Of course, it was always the Tom Chambers, right, kind of shorts, the Robert Parrish kind of shorts, right? No, they changed the culture of the game. They came in as freshmen and said, you know what, we're going to take over. Okay, we're going to take over, not just physically but mentally. We're going to show culturally that this team or this product can change. And that's what they did. And I think that's why that team, in my opinion, is so symbolic because of what they were able to do. Not just on the court physically, but culturally as well. It was a big deal to me because in '93, I was show my age a little bit, but I was a freshman in high school in '93, and I was a baller, man. And it was, these guys are wearing these baggy shorts and these nice top, like that was great, man. Because who wanted to wear skinny shorts? Who wanted to wear skinny shirts? But back then that was kind of the way it was endured, right? That was what we accepted as a society. But they allowed us to veer off, okay, into another realm, which was unbelievable to me, and which is what I love about them 100%. So thank you, Fab Five, for that, okay, because I loved the long shorts and I loved the baggy shirts because that felt not only looked good, it felt goddamn comfortable, right? That's the thing. It felt really comfortable. And it was, listen, culture is all about style. I was a big kid in the sense of shoes, the hat, the shirt. I matched everything. I loved it. I still do nowadays. That was one of my biggest things, man. Yeah, skinny shirts and shorts are back. And JD, I know. I'll tell you what, you ain't gonna see me wear them. That's for damn sure. That's right, Vinny. Good. That's a good call. Not just the shorts, but the black Nikes. That's right. That's a really good call by Vinny. The black Nikes, absolutely. So they, as you see, they were a big part of the culture change within sports. And it started as a collegiate level, which that's one thing I will always give them. And I think that's one thing. Now, let's look at that '93 team. You guys remember anybody who was on the UNC team? Because I'll tell you what, if you think about it, it's kind of hard because everybody was focused on that Fat Five, right? Everybody was focused on that Fat Five, but who was on that North Carolina Tar Heel team led by the legend himself, Dean Smith? Now, I'll tell you what, just going back, not even researching it, the only guy I remember is Eric Montross. Right, I remember Eric Montross, number 2, big center, 0-0. Right, he was dominant back then, but I really can't remember who else they had on that team. So check in, let me know what you think. Dan Green says the '87 Temple team, 1-year bust. Mark, wow, that's a Mark Macon team. That blew it and see, that's the worst. Number 1 all year and blew it to Duke early. I hate when I hear blew it to Duke early. I hate hearing the word Duke, man. I can't stand it. Yo, Trevor, what's up, buddy? I'm gonna get into hockey a little bit, Trev. So '93, big hockey year. I know you and Dan are gonna like that. We're gonna get to that in a couple minutes because it was a big symbolic hockey year as well. So Dan also checks and said they ended the nut hugger era. That being said, did you see the guy from Texas Southern wearing short shorts the other day? Oh man, no, I didn't. I'm glad I didn't. JD, yes, George Lynch. Good call. George Lynch was on that team. Absolutely. George Lynch, 100%. Yes, Trevor, Kings Habs finals when Gretzky goes down, right? So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, George Lynch was on that team. Adam checking in. They're all coming in. George Lynch. Yeah. But I keep thinking there was another guy on that team, a European guy, number 20. I can't think. I can't think of who it was. So check that out for me, guys. I know I'm missing a guy, but listen, the infamous timeout, right? The infamous timeout, culture connoisseur. That's my man JD checks and says, but the rest of the guys were bums. Yeah, like I said, really hard. But again, you look at the coach, right? What you do is you look at the coach. I say this all the time, and I'll continue to say it. Right? You win because of coaching in this realm. And I said that before. Listen, Jay Wright, Villanova. Who expected them to win? Nobody, right? Not many except themselves. When I've said this before on this show and other shows, that I bet on coaches and I bet on their culture, and that's exactly what happened. And that's why Jay Wright won that game. Can we talk? Yes, Trevor, we're going to talk about, listen, on this show, like I said, the weekly sports blend, we go back again in time this year, 93. So we are going to talk all of that. We're going to talk about Sir Charles. We're going to talk about the 3P. We're going to get into all of that, man. I got it all right here, man. I got it all right here. Been studying all week and even have some interesting tidbits. We're going to go over ticket prices and that nature, which is pretty cool. Adam says Georgia Tech beats Tar Heels at AC tournament 93. Check that out. And on that Georgia Tech team, that was a Bobby Kremen's team, obviously. But I think maybe Matt Geiger on that team in 93? I can't remember for Georgia Tech, but I think Matt Geiger could have been on that team. So, yeah, listen, again, we don't know what's going to happen this week in NCAA, but we know, listen, the Chris Webber moment will live forever, but that was an unbelievable team, a great time in sports history. Now, let's fast forward a little bit. And before we fast forward, let me give a shout out to the sponsor of this show right here, Prime Roofing. As always, Roof Rescue by Prime. They do a great job. If you need a new roof, if you need new siding, new windows, if you need a visual inspection, they can do remote inspections. They have the drones available. They do your roof right the first time the right way. Call Prime today, 215-322-5634, and tell them Tony Jigsaw Cutillo sent you. Now, Jordan is the king of the 90s period, JD enters, and you're absolutely right. He goes out on top of the game, right? 31 years old, he retires. We all know that the backstory, right? His father, James, is found murdered. We obviously know, we're not sure, what the implications were, but all we know is he passed away, and Jordan wants to live out the legacy of playing professional baseball, and he goes to the Chicago White Sox, and the rest is history. But for this show, we're talking about 93, the last second shot by not last second, but final seconds of Game 6 by Mr. John Paxson, right? But it was symbolic because this was supposed to be Charles Barkley's year. This was supposed to be Sir Charles' swan song, right? He was in Philadelphia for how many years, and he was so good. He forced his way out because he wanted to win a ring, and he deservingly so. I completely agree with him. He goes to this team, and that Paul Westphal team was stacked, right? It was stacked, but they still couldn't beat MJ. They still couldn't beat Michael. Now, here's one of the interesting tidbits about Michael that year, right? So when you look back, and I can't wait, this is going to be such a fun episode because we're going to talk movies as well. But you look at Michael Jordan in 93, okay? It's his third championship, the first three-peat for the Chicago Bulls. Do you know that his base salary that year was $4 million? $4 million. But overall, it was estimated to bring home $36 million. Right? And think about that. That's $11 million more than a second paid athlete of that year. Now, that's the trivia question right now. For all you listening, without Googling, that year in 93, Michael Jordan was estimated to bring in $36 million with only a base of $4 million. It was all incentives, right? It was all incentives. He had all the incentives, right? But it was $11 million more than the second highest paid athlete of that year. Okay? Let me hear who you guys think that was. So that person made $25 million that year. So who was that second guy? So think about that. Think about that a little bit while we continue to go on. And I think you may be surprised at who that person could be. Now, Andre checking in 93. Right. You know what, Andre, that's a good point. 93, arguably the weakest team of the six that won with him. You're right. That was not a strong team, right? That really wasn't, if you think about it. So that's a good point. That Phoenix team, what was on paper, position to position, that Phoenix team was better, 100%. But because of that, that shows the greatness of Michael Jordan. Adam says, Adam going to go tweet here. All right, here we go. Adam says Jordan scores. Look at that. See, that's my man Adam is all over this. Jordan scores his 20,000th point in his 620th game. Adam, fantastic bring to the show. Fantastic pull. 20,000 points Jordan scores that year in his 620th game in 1993. Huge comment right there. Very, very symbolic. He made a tad more. Yes, exactly. Dan, you're right. 4 million base, 36 million overall. It's crazy. And JD, no, it's not Olajuwon. So think about that as we go on. Always a race car. No, it wasn't a race. It wasn't an IndyCar driver. It wasn't a race car driver either. But I will tell you the answer to this trivia question is it's not a football player. It's not a basketball player. It's not a baseball player. It's not a hockey player. Throwing it out there. It's neither one of those big four. So you got to think. You're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe it, right? But we'll bring that up later, okay? We'll bring it up later. And again, we'll bring it up later because right now it's a good time because we have to talk about, and this is going to be more of what we do here, right? So National Bobblehead Hall of Fame. Right there, we're giving away 2 bobbleheads of each. 2 of Joe Lunardi, 2 of Sister Jean, courtesy of the National Bobblehead Hall of Fame and Museum. More details to come out on Monday, tomorrow, on what you're going to need to do to get into that contest. It's a partnership. Listen, we're very excited to announce it at Bobblehead Hall. Okay, these people are legit. These are legit bobbleheads. You're not buying these at Five Below. Okay, they come in a case, certificate of authenticity, and everything. So get in the game right now. Start following them today at Bobblehead Hall. Follow Heat Ratio Sports just so you can get all the updates because you're going to have to follow both of us in order to be entered into this contest. So really exciting things coming. So we got right here. All right, so what we got some good. I would say Hulk Hogan. That's a good guess, Andre. It's not Hulk. It's not Hulk, but that's a really, really good guess. A really, really good guess. They Joe Jag. Yo, Joe. This is my work today, brother. This is my real work, Joe. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So absolutely, Joe checking in. My man, I'll probably see you tomorrow. So Andre says it's probably wrestler. No, you did hit Hulk Hogan, but it's not. And Dan says Sampras or Greg Norton. No, it's not a golfer or it's not a tennis player as well. So let's get to let's get right into the MVPs of that year. Okay, as you guys are thinking right now, okay, so Dan, you bring up a really good point about Pete Sampras, who this was the year of Pete Sampras. He won the U.S. Open and Wimbledon. Pete was another guy who I don't think is talked about enough. Steffi Graf on the women's side wins both as well, 2 of the big events in the National Tennis Association, right? So let's talk about MVP. Steve Young wins the MVP for the NFL. His numbers weren't that great that year, but at that time, they were good for the era that he was in, right? Mario Lemieux wins the NHL MVP. Great Mario, right? I know that is absolutely a guy who Dan and Trevor love. Charles Barkley wins the MVP in NBA, right? And let's talk about the MVPs in Major League Baseball. Barry Bonds, okay? So here we go. Let's talk about Barry Bonds for a second. 1993. The reason why it's symbolic for Barry Bonds, it's just the first of a 6-year, $43 million deal that he signs with the San Francisco Giants. So everybody will say it was the skinny Barry Bonds, right? But this was the beginning of history for me. This is the beginning where Barry Bonds decides to take off and be the greatest power hitter we've ever seen in Major League Baseball. No matter what anybody says, I'm not going to get into storylines beyond that today. We're just talking about from a power perspective as a baseball perspective, okay? He was the MVP that year. 300, right? He bat 336, 46 home runs, 123 RBIs, not to mention 181 hits. He almost had 200 hits as a power hitter, 126 walks, and he was 28 years old. Just began his dominance in Major League Baseball. And then you have on the flip side, okay, you have Frank Thomas, the big hurt, okay, at 25 years old, who wins the AL MVP for the Chicago White Sox, batting at 317, 41 home runs, 128 RBIs, and 174 hits. So both of those guys, very, very fun to watch in 1993, especially with a baseball product that was really starting to, it obviously died at the lockout in 94, but it was starting to go down that path. So those guys at least gave us some kind of rejuvenation within the product itself. And if you were a local Philly guy, obviously you had the Philadelphia Phillies who went to the World Series and unfortunately had our hearts broken by the man Joe Carter with that Cito Gaston-led Toronto Blue Jays team. Adam says, Mario Lemieux, yes, he announces a very sad time, but luckily gets through it, right? In remission, he gets through. Mario Lemieux announces he has Hodgkin's lymphoma in 1993. Now, you know what's interesting about that is back then you didn't really hear about sicknesses like this. Now, and I'm pretty sure, I'm going to go out on a limb, I think that in 1993, this is the year Arthur Ashe might have passed away as well. I'm not sure. But yeah, Mario Lemieux, you know, we related to him as an athlete. It's the first time I think, in my opinion, that we had a connection with an athlete who was facing a rare disease. Because I don't think it was expected. I can't remember. And this is beyond. This is beyond talking about. Like when we had the AIDS factor, like you had Greg Louganis come out, and, HIV positive and things of that nature. But I think in '93, it might have been Lance Armstrong. It might have been another athlete. When he had the testicular cancer, it might have been another thing. Was like, wow, like the big C is something that's really inserting itself into the world of sports, and we really became tied to that, and we followed the journey with Mario Lemieux. We followed everything around. And, obviously he went into remission. He came back and listen, he was better than ever, man. He was better than ever. And I'll tell you, it's a great story. It really is. It's an absolute great story to follow because Mario Lemieux, okay, not only was the MVP last year, man, that dude was a beast. And I say that all the time. And I wasn't even a huge hockey guy, right? I wasn't even a huge hockey guy. But that year in 93, you look at his counterpart because in 93, it was Gretzky and Lemieux, right? The Kings who take game one, okay, in the NHL finals. What happens? The Habs come back in 4 games and sweep them out, man. Sweep them out. And who got the MVP? None other than Patrick Waugh. Patrick Waugh had a symbolic, I love that word, symbolic. He had a symbolic series. Patrick Waugh inserted himself as the Hall of Fame goaltender right there before our very eyes in that series. I know, Dan, you know all about that. Okay, I'm sure you could give us some knowledge about that 93 series, okay, in the NHL between the Habs and between the Kings, where we all, right? Look, see, look, he's already, Leclerc, huge in that series. Look, he's already, Dan's excited right now. If I know right now, my buddy Dan Green's sitting there on the other side, and he's chomping at the bit. Him and Trevor are just chomping to get into this. Now, that's a good pull by you, Dan. Arthur, that's it. That's it. Arthur Ashe got HIV from a blood transfusion. That's what happened in 93. Exactly. Unbelievable, man. That, again, it was a year of some sickness, man. It was a year, and in 93, it was before a lot of that stuff was well documented. It was before a lot of that stuff was out in the forefront, out in the open. And again, athletes are popular. Athletes have a huge following. So when this stuff happens, unfortunately, in an indirect way, it's good for society to understand what these diseases are all about, because we look at athletes and we feel as though they're like the Incredible Hulk, right? They're invincible, right? Nothing can hurt them. They're these powerful heroes that cannot be taken down. But unfortunately, when something like that happens and you see somebody get a sickness like that, it brings everything in perspective and says, you know what? If this could happen to Mario Lemieux, if this could happen to Arthur Ashe, this could happen to me. So I think that's one of the things as a learning lesson that we have. And again, I always say that we end the shows always to stay safe, stay healthy. But that is why just everybody just continue down that right path. But Adam with a really good comment here, okay, because he is deep into Jigsaw's wheelhouse right now. Mike Albee bowled the PBA 6 televised 300 game. Mike Albee goes down, obviously, as one of the top bowlers. And I know, my man Rich Drummond hasn't checked in yet, but I know he'll check in later or he'll watch this on replay. But the reason why I love that Adam brought up Mike Albee is because a legend bowled his last game over the weekend. Okay, or I should say last week. And that's none other than the great Pete Weber. Pete Weber, to me, will be one of my favorite, and I'm going to call him an athlete. Okay, because goddamn right, you say whatever you want, but bowlers are athletes too. I am a bowler. I was a bowler on a very high level. I took a little break for a little while, but I don't think people understand how hard the world of bowling is, how hard you have to train to perfect your shot. Okay, so I will call them athletes. And Pete Weber, to me, but people don't know Pete Weber, and I know my man John Coker is going to kill me for this, but Pete Weber, you talk about charisma, you talk about energy, you talk about passion, right? That is Pete Weber. People hated him. They hated him. You know why? He was the first guy to talk trash. That's the thing. Everybody gets mad at the guys talking trash on the court and on the field. The man Pete Weber, he created trash talkers. Say whatever you want. Okay, he was the Dennis Rodman of bowling, man. You go back, he was a Dennis Rodman of the PBA. He was dirty, he was grimy, he was in your face, but he was goddamn good. And he's a Hall of Famer, and he deserved everything that he got in return. And he backed up everything that he did. So shout out Pete Weber. And Adam, thank you for bringing up the Mike Albee comment, because we always forget to add the PBA into the show. And I'm glad you brought that in. Now, Adam also says that Pavel Bure, 2 goals in a game, became the first player in Vancouver history to record 50 goals. Interesting. The first player in Vancouver history to record 50 goals, Pavel Bure. Now, I got to ask my hockey people out there. This is going to go, Adam. I think you're a hockey guy. I know Dan Green, you're definitely a hockey guy. Trevor, is Pavel Bure a Hall of Famer? And I honestly don't even know if he's either in the Hall of Fame or maybe should he be in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. Like, I'm being honest. I'm being transparent. I'm not going to just spitball things here. I don't know hockey that well. Okay. It's not something that's in my strong wheelhouse. So I'm just curious. Let me know who you think, or do you think he should be in the Hall of Fame, or is he in the Hall of Fame? I'm not sure. My luck, he probably is. I don't know. But the biggest thing I remember about Pavel Bure is his upper deck rookie card it was almost like a hologram, right? It had like three pictures of Pavel Bure. It was like his slap shot. Every picture got lower. So that's what I remember about Pavel Bure. Dan says Montreal won 3 straight in overtime. Leclerc scored 2 of those goals. That's right. And Eric Desjardins scored a hat trick in one game. Eric Desjardins, another underrated player in the NHL. Obviously, we know him for the Philadelphia Flyers, but man, what a defense. Number 37. See, I do know some hockey. Okay, you might be surprised. Dan says, yes, PB in a Hall. Okay, so Pavel Bure is in a Hall of Fame. Okay. Again, like I kind of figured he was, or he should be, but because he was such a popular name back then, I mean, he was in that Sergei Fedorov, Steve Yzerman. He was kind of in those years, pack. Teemu Selanne was a big name back then, right? I don't remember him per se, but I remember the name Teemu Selanne. And again, I was a big card collector, so he was one of my favorite rookie cards back then. Obviously, in '93, here you go. While we stick to the NHL, okay, the NHL is symbolic for us locally. You know why? Because guess who was the highest paid player? Guess who was the highest paid player in the NHL that season? Who? And there's another trivia question. Okay, we'll get back to that again. Who was the highest paid player in the NHL in 1993? And again, let me know who you think it was and how much he made, right? The Russian Rocket, Teemu Rookie of the Year. Absolutely. I love it, Dan. The Russian Rocket. I love that nickname. That's tremendous. But who was the highest paid NHL player in 1993, and who did he play for? Think about that for a second, okay? As we go through this, I want to go through, this is a very interesting thing here, because we're going to look at how much it cost to get into these games, okay, in 1993. Again, when you look at what the prices are now, the average ticket price for a Major League Baseball game, ready for this, was $9.73. $9.73. The NBA was anywhere from average of $25 to $27 per ticket. Very, very interesting. Now, the FCI is a method used to measure the cost of a family outing at a game. Okay? It is calculated by multiplying an average ticket price by 4. 2 small beers, 4 small sodas, okay, 2 programs, parking, and the 2 cheapest hats in the stadium. I love that. So think about that. Calculated by multiplying an average ticket price by 4, 2 small beers, 4 small sodas, 2 programs, your parking fee, and 2 cheapest hats at the stadium. Now, again, FCI, this is brought to you by Complex.com. So FCI, I love this, the family cost of an outing. So what was the FCI for the 3 of the big 4? Okay, NHL numbers were non-existent in 1993. So we're going to go with the big 3. Okay, what's the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball? The NFL was $173. The NBA was $168. And Major League Baseball was $90. $90, okay, to get 2 beers, 4 small sodas, 2 programs, parking, the cheapest hats in the stadium, and 4 tickets for $90. Think about that. How much the world has changed. That is an unbelievable. Adam says, yes, 1 beer is $16 these days. Exactly. Think about that, Adam. $90 gets you all that for Major League Baseball. $168 for the NBA. $173 for the National Football League. Exact, Andre, $90, dude, $90. And listen, again, that's why we do these kind of shows. I love bringing these statistics to the forefront because until I research this stuff, I didn't know. I do a bunch of notes. Listen, I'll be honest with you. I got notes and everything, right? This is my study habits, okay? I love bringing these different statistics to the realm because we talk about now, but we never think about how much or back then. It's just crazy. Dan Green says, Mario Lindros, Gretzky, Zoom. It was Eric Lindros. Philadelphia Flyers, Eric Lindros was the highest paid NHL player in 93 with a minor $3.35 million. And I say that because you think about $3.3 million. You're like, wow, that's it? But he was the highest paid player in the NHL, was Eric Lindros in 93, $3.35 million for the Philadelphia Flyers. So very, very interesting. Now, let's get into this. This is another really fun. So I love sneakers. And again, the Air Jordans, they hit the market, right? The Air Jordan 8s. Okay, what arguably more, listen, we all know about the Air Jordans with the Spike Lee commercials and the Wheeze commercials, the Nike, Gatorade. I mean, everybody had the mics, right? But again, there was also, think about it, you had Ewings, Matumbos, you had the Barclays, Shaqs. There were so many different sneakers to choose from back then, right? But how about the infamous rise? And Andre, if you're listening, you're going to like this because obviously, you have your own clothing line, right? You have your own gear on Anomaly. Shout out. Check out Anomaly. Fantastic, fantastic gear. My man Andre hooking it up every day. Half court heat ratio sports. Anomaly. Check it out. And you're like this, Andre. What about the starter hoodies? What about the starter pullover hoodies? Starter goes public on a stock exchange in April, and their pullover hoodies were all the rage in the playground, right? Everybody, that was the beginning of the hoodie. Now, I was a big starter guy. I think we were all starter guys, right? And you think about that. You think about it, right? Obviously, yeah, AI Reeboks, the answer, right? We had the Reeboks as well. And I love the answers. The answers were, I love the AIs, man. They were really cool. And they had the answers and the questions, I think. They came out later with the questions. And oh man, Dan says about Lindros, he was 19 and 93. That's a very interesting stat too. I did not know his age in 93. But let's get back to the symbolic starter comment here for a second. So starter for me, I was a pro player guy, right? I had the pro player jacket, which was the parka. Okay, it had the P hanging down from it, had the big patch on the back, right? Whether I had the Charlotte Hornets one, so I had the big Hornet on the back, right? I had Charlotte right here on the side, but then you had the starter hoodie that came out, right? And Andre, exactly. We didn't care. Everybody had the starter hoodies. The starter hoodies is what evolutionized the game of apparel and sports in my opinion, because that's when you start to leech on. Because here's the symbolic part. Back then, and even now, you do have some hardcore fans that are like, listen, I'm only wearing Eagle stuff. That's it. I'm only wearing Eagle stuff. But in 93, it showed you it was okay to wear apparel from a different team. Not because you like the team, because you like the colors. I had so much Charlotte Hornets gear because I loved the teal and purple look. I loved it. I had so much Charlotte Hornets gear. I was a Charlotte Hornets fan. Okay, yeah, I liked Alonzo Mourning back then. He was a decent player. But again, at the same time, it wasn't while I was wearing Charlotte Hornets gear. I was wearing it because I loved the colors, and it was okay because everybody had starter. Adam says, yes, absolutely. Everybody had the starter hoodies, right? Andre, starter had the unexpected success with the team jackets, and they followed up with the hoodies, and they were hit. Absolutely. The pullover starter jackets with the pocket in the middle. Right, you had the big pouch pocket. You had the symbol right on the belly part, and you had the hood, and it was tricolored. There was nothing like it. I mean, everywhere you went, and again, I'm going to show. I know not everybody's a Philly guy here, but I'm a Philly guy. I grew up in Philly, okay, and I used to stand in line at Margaret and Orthodox, okay, down the way, down Frankfurt Ave. For Olympia Sports, I used to stand in line on the Ave waiting to get in just so I could get my starter jacket. And when you walked into Olympia, okay, the entire wall was all starter jackets. You had all starter jackets and hoodies, and you had all the sneakers on the other side. Okay. And I know Andre had been down to Olympia, and I know he knows of Olympia as well. So Olympia Sports is where I grew up. Okay, that's the store I grew up going to every single 2 weeks to see what the new stuff that came out. So I love it. Andre says you get a Maverick. Exactly. You had the Maverick side because of a different color green. And that's the thing. We didn't wear this gear because we wanted to be fans of the teams. We wore the gear because they were symbolic. It was a symbolic color. It was a symbolic pattern. We enjoyed it. And it was okay. It was literally okay. It was okay to do that. So that's when style became apparent. That's when culture really started to rise. And I love it, man. I absolutely love it. So let's get back to the sports forefront because there's so much more to talk about. And so, yes, you had to get the hat to match. And again, you had to get the woolly hat too. Scully's weren't in. It was Woolies. The Woolies were in. It wasn't the Scully's yet, 93. But it was also the beginning of the fitteds, right? The fitted hats started to come and play in 93 as well. So you think about all the style you had, right? From the fitted hat to the starter jacket, right? To the N1s or the Shaqs or the Kemps or the Jordans or the AIs. I mean, you had, listen, it was great to be a kid in 93. I'll tell you that, man. It was great to be a kid in 93. It really was. But how about this? Let's go right into, we'll veer off for a little bit and we'll talk about sports movies. And again, the reason why I say that is because it was a huge year for sports flicks. Okay, obviously it featured Cool Runnings, which was the inspirational true story about the 1988 Jamaica bobsled team who finished dead last. And I was a huge bobsled guy. I used to love the Winter Olympics for one thing in particular. It was the bobsled. I used to love watching the bobsled races, right? So 93 was a big year for Cool Runnings. But then you also have a ton of other movies. You have Rudy, right? Rudy, listen, if you ain't seen Rudy, okay, and you don't cry at Rudy, come on, man. You're not a true sports fan if you're not crying at Rudy, okay? Because everybody cries at Rudy. A tremendous, tremendous movie, okay? Andre says, yes, I.G. Goldberg hated that starter. You're right. I.G. Goldberg was a huge department store huge company back then. And then once Starter took off, they were done, man. You're absolutely right. But get back, listen, I love Rudy. Rudy is in the vault, man. Rudy is the movie, and I know it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes long, but I can watch the entire movie anytime, anywhere, okay? Cool Runnings is good, but for me, I really love Rudy. Now, another movie, how about an underrated James Caan flick, The Program? Program was a tremendous movie. And you know what? A Program was a great movie in 93? It was because it shows you what happens if you don't take education seriously. Now, I forget the actor, okay, who played the middle linebacker in that movie. I forget. But, it's a great story for kids out there that are collegiate athletes right now and are trying to go down the right path when we talk about education, because your next play is never given. You cannot take for granted the following day when you're a sports athlete. You could tear your ACL. You could have a career-ending injury at any time. So education is number one, is key. And I know my man Andre would agree with that as well. So the big part of that movie was, here you go. Here's your middle linebacker who's all-American, all-world, right? They run him into the ground. Okay, he's not worried about school. He's not worried about anything. And he's getting ready to sign a huge multi-year deal, getting drafted. And what does he do in the last game? He tears his knee to the point where he'll never play again. Okay, and it just shows you right there at that time how important education is. Now, I'm not going to sit here and talk about you need to get this degree, you need to get that degree, you need to get. What I'm saying is just education as whole. Educate yourselves on everything. Okay, and I think that's what that movie was very symbolic for. A great movie, by the way, too. I love the Program. It was great movie. Now, one of the funnier movies when we talk, there's two of them. Okay, with sports, is Rookie of the Year and The Sandlot. Now, I wasn't a big Sandlot guy. I'll tell you that. Wasn't a huge Sandlot guy. I was a huge Rookie of the Year guy. Huge Rookie of the Year fan. One of the greatest movies. And our friend of the show, I know Mark Farzetta at Farzy Show. Check him out. I know he had Rudiger, Henry Rowan-Gardner. All right, that was Henry Rowan-Gardner. That was the kid's name. Okay, obviously that wasn't his actual real name, but his fictitious name was Henry Rowan-Gardner. Okay, and he actually was in the American Pie film later released, which we all know about that. But great movie. I know Mark did a great interview with him as well. But again, that was. Obviously that was in the Disney movie, in a real big case. And what was the pitcher's name? Stedman. Stedman. Stedman was the old school pitcher who he had to take his spot. So yeah, you always remember the rubber band arm, but that was a really good movie. But let's end this movie talk again. How can we not? The biggest gaming release of the year. Okay. NBA Jam. A game that left you wanting more. Right? Again, NBA Jam. Who did not play NBA Jam, whether it be in the arcades or whether it be home on video? Okay, it was released on video. It was already in the arcades, but to have it on video, have it on your home system to play NBA Jam with the big heads and a small body. You're on fire. Get that out. Get the block out. I think that the team was Shaq and Penny. You had Anthony Hardaway and Shaq. Right? I mean, what a great 1-2, right? I mean, I used to play that all the time, right? Adam checking in play, absolutely. NBA Jam was huge, and again, it was before everything got so professional, like, right? And again, I used to like getting the games like the NBA Lives and the NBA 2Ks and build my players and build my roster and build my team, but NBA Jam was just, man, you just hit the button and you played. And that's the thing. We miss that with video games now. And again, I know video games is huge. Shout out Big Man Finelli, Jason Finelli, who does great work. We work together, do things together for Fox Sports The Gambler. Jason Finelli is the esports insider, does a tremendous job covering esports. He's the video game guy. And I know if I had him on the show talking about NBA Jam, he would be excited as well. But what I will tell you about it is nowadays, again, I love the video games. The graphics are second to none. But it takes so goddamn long to just start the game. Like, I just want to plug in the game. Now it's not even, everything's digital, right? There's really no discs. But I just want to hit the game and go. But now, no, you got to do training. And, you got to build up your player. And, you have to face, this training session. And it's ridiculous. Like, I just want to hit the game. And NBA Jam was you put the game in and you just go. And you have fun, man. You could play that with 4, 5, 6 people. You could have tournaments, NBA Jam. Everybody get a specific team. Oh, my God. Listen, I think it was KJ and Charles Barkley were for Phoenix, right? I mean, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. So NBA Jam, yes. And that is one thing that we had to talk about because NBA Jam just took over the video game scene. Now, obviously, I really didn't want to get huge into this because it's dear to my heart to watch Joe Carter with the walk-off home run against Mitch Wild Thing Williams and against the '93 Philadelphia Phillies. But again, it was their second back-to-back consecutive World Series, right? They win in 6 games, and we all know about Joe Carter against Mitch Williams. But Cito Gaston, look at that team. That team was stacked, man. It was stacked. Okay, it absolutely was, and to look back on that '93 Phillies team, we could do a whole episode if we were just strictly Philly on this program of that '93 team for when it started and when it ended up, because nobody expected that team to even come in and compete at all. Nobody expected that team to compete, right? But they did, right? And that's the thing, they did. So when they did compete, everybody was shocked. They took off little by little, right? Little by little, they took off. And then all of a sudden, right? All of a sudden, it was like, okay, this team might be for real. Then we got to the All-Star game. And then we were like, okay, wait a minute. Things are picking up here, right? And players, obviously, they were misfits, they call them, because you had guys that had a career year. They came from other teams, like Danny Jackson. Who expected Danny Jackson to be such a stalwart on the mound? Who expected that? Who expected Petey and Cavilla to come in and actually play meaningful innings for this team, right? Who expected David West to come out of a bullpen, okay, from San Diego and actually do? Who expected John Kruk, right? We all remember the All-Star game against Randy Johnson, right? I mean, that's symbolic. Adam says, I met Tommy Green. T. Green was a great guy. Still a great guy. I met T. Green several occasions, whether it be autograph sessions or sports card shows. Tommy Green did a lot of sports memorabilia appearances. But T. Green, again, he was just an old school style pitcher, man. He went up, just give me the ball, I want to pitch. He was a no-nonsense guy, and that's how that 93 team really was, right? That's how that 93 team really was, but all led by the man Jim Fregosi, right? I mean, who would have thought Jim Fregosi would be a World Series manager? I know they didn't win, but he got to the dance, and that's important, man. So that's really, really important. So, yeah, nobody expected that to happen. So before we move on, did anybody get who the second highest paid athlete in '93 was? I haven't seen anybody check in with that. So I'm just curious if that is, somebody knows who that guy was. Now, we're going to swing right into the PGA real fast because we're going to look at, again, all 4 of these names are not talked about enough. So that year in the Masters tournament was Bernard Langer. Bernard Langer leads the Masters. U.S. Open is Lee Janzen. British Open, Greg Norman. There's a PGA name for you right now. PGA Championship was Paul Azinger, and the PGA Tour money leader was Nick Price that year. Nick Price, Dave Stockton is senior PGA Tour winner, okay, at $1.175 million. Nick Price brought in 1.5, and the Ryder Cup, the United States won 15-13. So a shout out to the PGA Tour, okay? But let's get into this because obviously we did not get into this last week, and I was pretty upset because I know Adam had a lot of stuff, right? But we talked about the infamous Hulk Hogan, right? We talked about the infamous Hulk Hogan heel turn. Who expected that heel turn, right? Again, I know everyone says sports entertainment, but it was so symbolic to see Hollywood Hogan come out and be the 6th guy. Now, when we talk about 93, right, one of the biggest things in that 93 was the rise of Yokozuna. So anybody who watched Well, it was WWF back then, but anybody who watched wrestling, knows the rise of Yokozuna. Yokozuna challenged Bret Hart for the championship in the main event, right? Because he won the Royal Rumble. Now, the other storyline was Hulk Hogan coming back, right? Again, there were so many different storylines in 93. Now, we talked about 96 was last week, and 96 was when Hogan goes and he's not Hollywood he's still Hulkamania, but he goes Halloween Havoc, 96, WCW, right? That's when WCW started with the Monday Night Wars. But in 93, okay, you still had Hogan. Okay, you still had Hogan, but he later faced Yokozuna, right? But again, the Yokozuna story is very interesting because I watched the documentary for Yokozuna, and he was one of those guys that he got to an ultimate high, but he just unfortunately he ate himself into the ground. I hate to say it, but that's actually what he did. He was a huge guy. They tried so many different things with Yokozuna that unfortunately here's the thing with wrestling. I'm a huge wrestling guy, and I don't know how many people watch wrestling out there. I know it's not a tremendous amount, but maybe you went back in 93 and used to watch wrestling back then, because I had my Saturday mornings with, I wrote you. Look, see, I wrote Yokozuna and Vader dominated as heavyweight champ. Another big guy, Adam, when you talk about Big Vader, rest in peace, right? But two tremendous guys that are, then there's this word again, that are symbolic in the world of professional wrestling. So again, Yokozuna just could not get out of his own way, right? He just couldn't get out of his own way. That's one of the biggest things. He couldn't get out of his own way. They tried to do as much as they could with him, but they only got to where they could. Now, you mentioned Van Vader, and I say that because Vader had a historic moment, okay, where he power bombs Cactus Jack. April 24th, WCW Saturday night, right? Vader and Harley Race. They need to powerbomb Cactus on the concrete. Now, again, that's why you hear that word concrete, because this is when storylines began to build, right? This is when they began to build, because we all know wrestling is only as good as its story, right? Only good. I'm watching the fast lane. You know what, Adam? So am I. I always love a good pay-per-view for WWE. AEW is my thing right now, but I still cross back to WWE from time to time because I am a network subscriber. But here's what's symbolic about the power bomb, as they call it, heard around the world, April 24th, 1993. Okay, it's because it began a storyline. Number one, you remember they had the padding outside on the ring. Now, before ECW came in, it was always like, no wrestlers always need padding. ECW was crazy. Those guys, they didn't need padding. They didn't need anything. They were all concrete. But this is the first time you watched somebody get power bombed in WCW or WWF on the concrete. And the best thing about it was they got the storyline, and they brought Cactus Jack, where he had memory loss, he had amnesia, right? It was so big because people broke character in that moment. So back then, and I know for well, at 93, as a 13, 14-year-old boy, I knew that wrestling was fixed, right? But as a younger kid, you didn't know that. You thought it was real, and you connected with these athletes. And this is where they had people, even like Jesse the Body Ventura, okay, who gets off the headset and he breaks his character, rides in the ambulance with Cactus Jack. Like, oh my God, this guy, he might have brain damage. That's how wrestling gets over, right? That's how wrestling gets over. And that's what's so important to me about professional wrestling. And that's why I absolutely love it, right? Now, I know Adam wrote Yokozuna and Vader, right? Obviously, but how about, I love this. I love this, man. You had WCW and WWF. Now, WCW, their big event was Starrcade. So Starrcade was their WrestleMania. So when you had Starrcade, it was like, wow, okay. Nature Boy Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Four Horsemen. Okay, Starrcade was their main event. Now, it wasn't huge like WrestleMania. WrestleMania was in the Silver Dome, for Christ's sake, right? You didn't see Starrcade like that, but Starrcade, because they were always the lower entity, okay, David Crockett Promotions, so they didn't have the kind of money and bankroll that Vince McMahon had with WWF. But for me, I was a WCW guy. I really was. And I say that because back then, Vader, obviously, he held the WCW championship from the beginning of 93 until Starrcade. Okay. And then that's where he lost to Ric Flair in a title versus career match. And that's when Vader goes away and he kind of rejuvenates himself in different parts of the industry. Okay. He had some New Japan. He had some New Japan highlights. AWA, right? That was another one. If you watch Real Wrestling, AWA was huge. But let's get into, how about one of the biggest events is the Royal Rumble, obviously for WWE, and I think Royal Rumble is one of my favorite pay per views. Always, it always was my favorite pay per view, right? Because you just never know who's going to come out. Now I know it's all predetermined, and I get it, and you know who's going to win number one, but there were so many big men, whether it be the Undertaker, Big Boss Man, Bam Bam Bigelow, right? There's another name, Bam Bam Bigelow, right? But again, there's so that again, the commentators from Bobby Heenan, Gorilla Monsoon, rest in peace. One of the referees, Danny Davis, right? And again, I have all these names written down because these are what are symbolic to me. Okay, these are what's symbolic to me. But look at just some of these matches. Okay, Shawn Michaels defeats Marty Jannetty for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. Bam Bam Bigelow defeats Big Boss Man. Bret Hart defeats Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. Okay, Scott Hall. Yokozuna wins. Obviously, we talked about that. The Royal Rumble match to face Bret Hart for the title. Okay, at WrestleMania. So again, he eliminates the Macho Man Randy Savage. So again, I love. How about Goldberg, his streak when he came in WCW? That's another big one, Adam. You talk about the streak in WCW. When again, when he power jackhammers Hollywood Hogan in the middle of the ring. I remember it like it was yesterday. He wins the title, and that's when everything went downhill, honestly. Unfortunately, like the interest in Royal Rumble and the surprise entrances, absolutely. The surprise entrances are absolutely huge. They really are. They're absolutely huge. But I love these look backs, man. So, Mean Gene, Oakland, Howard Finkel, ring announcer. Yes, big names. Now, let's get back as we end the show because we're at 57-minute mark, and I love this show. This is one of my favorites. And again, shout out Prime Roof, and we'll get to them in a little bit. Bobblehead Hall of Fame, we'll get to them in a little bit. But how about the second highest paid athlete? Nobody got that. So again, I'm going to go back to this. The second highest paid athlete, okay, you're not going to believe this, was Riddick Bowe, boxer Riddick Bowe. Okay, made $25 million that year. So think about that. That's how much boxers make. Okay, Riddick Bowe again, and he had his own boxing title on Sega. Okay, Riddick Bowe boxing. So Riddick Bowe was the second highest paid athlete, which again, shocking to me. Absolutely shocking to me. I was really surprised at that. Really was. But again, I think we covered everything. Again, I love doing this show. I love looking back. It's great. I love the fan perspective. I love when you guys bring your comments. I mean, listen, we touched everything. We touched culture. We touched video games. We touched wrestling. We touched big sports, little sports, Olympics, movies. We touched everything. Action-packed hour. Tremendous. But again, big week ahead, as always. Okay, tonight, Half Court Heat, episode 10 drops. Okay, we'll see what me, Al, Andre cook up. We'll talk a little Sixers. We'll talk about what we think of them going ahead some pretty interesting games that they just played. Lot of points scored from players without Joel Embiid. Will they make a move? Who knows? What will the future hold? Adam says 1993. Yes, Michael. Exactly. So that's why he won all that money, right? Right. That's why he won all that money. Big payday for him. $25 million that year for Riddick Bowe. But again, check us out. Again, I keep throwing this up there because this is very important to us, man. If you follow us, National Bobblehead Hall of Fame Museum, check them out. Look at the Sister Jean bobblehead, the Joe Lunardi bobblehead, symbolic right now. There's that word again, symbolic. Bracketology guy, right? NCAA, you see what's going on right now. So these are legit. Get in the game right now. Go give us a follow. Give the Bobblehead Hall of Fame a follow as well. We're going to be doing special words for each show throughout the week. You're going to give us one of those special words. Put your name in a hat, and we're going to run this for the entire month. These are pre-ordered bobbleheads, okay? They do not ship until April 25th. So we have a whole month to run this contest. So I want to get a lot of interaction with this as well. National Bobblehead Hall of Fame, they're really looking forward to this. Looking forward to all the interaction. We're going to do some votes. We're going to have some fun, man. Trivia questions, you name it, all different stuff here, Heat Ratio Sports. But as always, like I like to say, I love everybody stay healthy, right? We always say that. But again, let me give a shout out to the sponsor of this show, Prime Roofing. As always, Roof Rescue by Prime, home of Roof Rescue, whether it be virtual inspections, whether it be insurance work you need, whether it just be a consultation, you name it. Bernie's the guy. Roofing done right. Call Prime today, 322-5634. Tell him Jigsaw sent you, okay? And he will do you right. Adam, also show again, Tony jumps off the star on Sunday. Adam, as always, I appreciate it, buddy. Seriously, this is why I like to do this. I love Sunday mornings. I know not a lot of people are up. A lot of people watch this on replay. But that's okay. I get my coffee, talk a little sports, jumpstart the day. Now it's 10:30. We got a whole nice day ahead. Get out. Everybody stay safe. Stay healthy. Catch Half Court Heat tonight. Catch the shows on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. All day content. Follow Heat Ratio Sports. Follow that YouTube page. Hit the notification bell. And here's very important. Follow the YouTube page and the notification bell, because I'm telling you right now that eventually all the content will be specifically on YouTube. So that's where we'll go live. That's where you will find us. That's where you're going to need to be. So sign up today. Obviously, it's free. Get your YouTube account so you can follow us and roll with us each day of the week. So as always, Tony Jigsaw Cutillo for Prime Roofing, for National Bobblehead Hall of Fame. I am your host. It's Sunday. Get out. Enjoy the day. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And we'll catch you next week.